So comparing real numbers, it seems so simple. Like we know what the signs are, we know how to write them. But what I want you guys to keep in mind is just like a book, we read things from left to right in math too. Um, so it's important to know when you see one of your signs, what is it actually reading? Do you read it left to right? Do you read it right to left? So that's the first thing to keep in mind. So if you're thinking about a number line, got your number line, zeros in the middle. The farther left you guys go into those negative numbers, the more less your value is. And then the farther right you go, those are your positive numbers. Those are going to be greater. So we've got two signs, greater than or less than. So when you've got the sign in between two numbers, if you're using the greater than sign, that means that the number on the left is greater than the number on the right. Not R. So we really want the open end, no matter which direction it is, to be the greater number. But it is going to be important down the road to be able to read it and understand what sign it is that you're looking at. So the less than sign is when the mouth is closed on the left and open on the right. So the larger number is on that right side. So that's going to be less than. So that means that the number on the left is less than or smaller than the number on the right. So really, it is important to keep in mind that number line, because I think as a visual, that's kind of helpful for when we go to compare numbers using less than or greater than. Now, if your numbers are in the same form, so like 3 and -7, hopefully, if you guys think about that, you guys can pretty quickly come up with, oh, the negative number has to be less than the positive number. So that's good. They're both integers, easy to compare. But when you got an integer and a fraction, they're also both negative, it's a little harder to figure out. So what I want you to do is make everything the same type of number. So make everything a decimal. That way it's a little easier to compare as you move through. So to make it a decimal, how do we make 9 halves a decimal? Well, this guy here, this fraction bar, is really just division. So we're going to take -9 and divide it by 2. So -9 divided by 2, so we get -4.5. So that's a little easier then to compare since they're both regular numbers. So we've got -11, -4.5. -11 would be further left. Further left is the least or lesser number. So 3.8, already decimal, but the square root of 14, same thing. We want to turn that into a decimal. So if you guys remember how to take the square root, it's a shift option above the x squared. So we want to push second and then x squared. And then we're going to put 14 inside there. 2 decimals is fine. So 3.74. So these are both positive. So which one is farther left? That's going to be the lesser number. So -12 and -20, same thing. The farther left is the lesser number. So -20 is farther left than -12. So that should be your lowest number. So -3.8 and -3.1. If you guys were on a number line, so say you had -3 right there. Negative 3.1 would be right here. Negative 3.8 would be right there. So the furthest left is less. I just think that's easier to remember because of L and L, left and less. So negative 2 square root 3, same thing. Just go to your calculator, start with the negative 2. And then second square root of 3. What does it equal? Negative 3.46. Now, I guess we really didn't need to turn that into a decimal, because if this one's negative and this one's positive, just right away, we know that the negative number should be less than the positive number. So sort of the same thing with h. We've got a negative and a positive. The negative is going to be smaller, just automatically. All right, so 4/7 and 1/7. If you're thinking of fractions, I know some of us are a little better with fractions than others, but 4/7 is going to be more than 1/7. 4/7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1/7. What is more? The 4/7. But you guys can always divide it too. Same thing, just 4 divided by 7 and 1 divided by 7. So 0.5 versus 0.1. But I do want you guys, like I said, we're going to work with fractions, so it's good to start thinking about them a little bit. Negative 12 and negative 13. Negative 13 is just a hair further left, so that will be less. Okay, so 2/5 and 1/9. It's a little harder to compare those because they're not the same type, like 7ths and 7ths you can compare. So 2/5 and 1/9, it is probably easiest to actually divide those. So 2/5, if you guys divide that, it's going to be 0.4. 1/9 is going to be 0.1 repeating. So 0.1 is less. And then negative 1/6 versus 0.9. Same thing, you guys can divide that 1/6. 1 divided by 6. 0.16 repeating. So negative 0.1 versus negative 0.9. Negative 0.9 will be further left, making it less. And then negative 7/3 and negative 3. Negative 7/3, negative 7 divided by 3 will be negative 2.3 repeating. So negative 3 is less than negative 2.3. So when you're comparing numbers, I do want you to know how to read the sign, but the smaller or lesser number should be at the closed end, and the larger or greater number should be on the open end of the inequality sign. But I think if you think about that number line, hopefully that's helpful of knowing or thinking about which one is farthest left to figure out the least, because I know sometimes those negatives throw us off.